Seneca wrote about this 2,000 years ago. He saw people wasting time. He said, "We aren't given a short life, we make it short. We aren't poor in time, we're wasteful with it." For him, it wasn't about length, it was about how well you live. I want to go through 25 signs that a life is being wasted. They come from Seneca's writing. This isn't about judging, it's about seeing. It's a mirror to see if you're squandering your life without knowing it, to ask what a well-lived day actually looks like. You might catch yourself thinking, "I'll be happy when something happens," or "They'll respect me once I achieve something." That's usually the first sign. You're living for tomorrow's approval, your sense of worth, your permission to feel okay. It's always waiting on the next milestone, on the next nod from someone else. Seneca saw this. He wrote that we aren't given a short life, but we make it short. We don't lack time, we waste it. Life is long, he said, if you know how to use it. And the great waste is in this postponement, this constant putting things off. You tell yourself real life begins when you get that job, when you buy that house, when you finally earn that person's admiration. But then you treat the present, the only time you actually have, like a waiting room. You're trading your actual hours for a fantasy. A fantasy of future validation, which is something you can't control. Think of the person working 80-hour weeks, sacrificing sleep, health, time with people they care about, all for a promotion they believe will finally make them feel successful, or the endless effort to curate a perfect image online, hoping the likes and comments will confirm you're living well. Seneca would ask, what are you building all this for? If your peace depends on a title or the applause of others, you've built your home on sand. The storm will come. Changing opinions, unexpected setbacks, it'll wash it away. So here's a prompt, a simple one but challenging. Identify one area in your life right now where you're waiting. Waiting for external validation to feel fulfilled. Is it your career, your social circle, your physical appearance? Just name it. That awareness, that's the first step. The quiet step off that exhausting treadmill. Seneca had great wealth himself, and he warned against the endless chase for more. He saw the trap from the inside. In Stoic thought, things like money, a comfortable home, a good reputation, these were preferred indifference. They're nice to have, they can make life easier. But they are not the supreme good. The supreme good is virtue, your character, your inner integrity. That's true prosperity. When you confuse the two, when you think acquiring more things is the same as building a better life, you step end. Each new desire, once you satisfy it, immediately creates a new one, a slightly more expensive one. It's a bottomless pit. Seneca observed that riches have enslaved far more people than they've ever freed. Think about that. We believe wealth brings freedom, but so often it creates a new servitude to maintaining a lifestyle, to impressing others. To the fear of losing what you have, the modern parallel is lifestyle inflation. You get a raise, so you move to a nicer apartment. You lease a more expensive car. You upgrade your wardrobe. Your expenses rise to meet your new income. And your underlying sense of contentment, your peace of mind, it doesn't increase. You're just running faster on the same treadmill. So here's a simple question, a revealing one. Think about the last significant thing you bought, something you really wanted. Did it bring lasting satisfaction, a deep, enduring feeling of well-being, or was it just a spike of temporary excitement, a spike that faded and left you looking for the next thing to acquire? That feeling, that fade, that's the quiet signal of the bottomless pit. You remember a time when anger or anxiety just took over. It wrecked your focus. It ruined your plans. Maybe you said something you wish you hadn't. That feeling, when the emotion is in control, Seneca called that being enslaved by passion. To the Stoics, passions aren't just feelings, they're mistakes in thinking. They're a kind of sickness that keeps you from seeing things clearly. Seneca wrote a whole book just on anger. He said it was the ugliest, the most frantic passion of all, and his main point was this: we aren't hurt by what happens, we're hurt by how we see it. The thing itself, the insult, the setback, the unfairness, it's neutral. It's our judgment about it, the story we tell ourselves that this is awful, that this is unbearable. That's what creates the storm inside. He wrote that anger is a short madness, and in that madness we think we're punishing someone else, but we're really punishing ourselves. You see this in small ways all the time. Dwelling on a coworker's offhand remark for hours, replaying it until your whole night is sour, or turning a small problem like a flat tire into a sign that your whole life is going wrong. In both cases, the original event is minor, but the suffering that comes after is huge, and you create it yourself. It's a waste of your time, your limited time. So there's a simple practice from Seneca. Next time a strong emotion rises up, anger or anxiety, just stop. Don't do anything, just watch it, and in that pause, ask one question. What's the judgment behind this feeling? What story am I telling myself about what happened that's causing all this chaos? Is that story completely true? That pause, that question, that's the first step in taking your freedom back. You can have a calendar that's completely full and still feel like you did nothing that mattered. That's the fourth sign. It's filling your time with empty busyness. You confuse constant motion with actual progress. Seneca talked about this. He called it being busy doing nothing. He'd see people rushing from one appointment to the next. Their days were packed with tasks, but their lives felt empty anyway. The difference, he pointed out, was between being busy and being effective. Between just filling hours and actually fulfilling a purpose. A life can be full of activity and still be a total waste, because the real question isn't whether you're occupied. It's whether what you're doing lines up with what you value. You see this everywhere now, like doom scrolling through social media for hours. You take in all this information, but it just leaves you more anxious. Or going to back-to-back meetings that have no clear agenda, no real outcome, and the time just feels like a tax on your energy. Then there's the cycle of household chores and errands. They're necessary, but they can expand to fill every spare minute if you let them. This isn't about being lazy, it's about direction. Seneca wrote in his essay on the shortness of life. He said life is long if you know how to use it. The person who knows how to use their time isn't the one with the longest to-do list. It's the one who can tell the essential from the trivial. Who can protect their attention, their most finite resource, from being frittered away on things that are urgent but not important. So here's a practical thing to try. A reflective prompt. Pick one day from your recent week. It doesn't have to be special, just a normal Tuesday. Look back at it and identify one single block of time. Maybe an hour or even 30 minutes that was spent on something with no real importance, an activity that didn't move any meaningful project forward. Didn't deepen a relationship, didn't restore your energy, and didn't bring you any joy. Just name it. Was it that long, circular email debate? Was it reorganizing a digital folder for the third time? Was it watching something you didn't even enjoy? Simply seeing that block for what it was, empty busyness. That's the quiet first step, the powerful one. Toward reclaiming it, Seneca warned about spectacles. He saw the crowds in Rome going to the chariot races, the gladiator games. He called it a public madness. A way to escape, to avoid the quiet and the questions that come up in that quiet. The Stoics talked about purposeful work instead, shaping your character. Not just consuming things, they saw boredom differently, not as something to defeat with distraction, but as a potential opening, a space where creativity can start. Where you can finally hear your own thinking. Seneca said it directly. The mind needs nourishment, not just amusement. Constant entertainment is like eating only candy. It feels good for a minute, but it leaves you weak later. It starves your focus, your capacity for deep thought, for facing the things that actually need your attention. You can see the modern reflex, a single minute of waiting in line, a quiet moment after a task, the hand goes to the pocket, automatically you scroll. You tap, you consume something, anything to fill the silence. That reflex is the sign. It's a flight from the present moment, from the mild discomfort of being alone with your own mind. Because in that quiet, you might have to confront a worry you've left unresolved, or acknowledge a dream you've been putting off, or just feel the weight of your own existence. Entertainment offers a painless exit, but the cost is your self-awareness, so a small challenge, a reflective prompt, tonight or tomorrow, carve out 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes of intentional silence, no phone, no podcast, no music, no screen, just sit, or take a slow walk with no audio input. Notice the urge to reach for a device. Notice the initial restlessness. That feeling is the boundary between a life of passive consumption and one of active engagement. What comes up in that quiet space? That might be the very thing you've been distracting yourself from hearing. The Stoics had this idea: we can't control what happens, but we can control how we respond. Complaining all the time is a refusal of that. It's a quiet surrender. When you blame traffic for your mood or the weather or a difficult person, you're doing something specific. You're focusing your energy, your attention on the part of life you can't change, and you give away your agency, your power to choose your reaction. That's the heart of the dichotomy of control. Some things are up to us, our opinions, our impulses, what we do. Those are our responsibility. Everything else isn't. Our body, our property, our reputation, what other people do. To complain about what's not up to us is to argue with reality. It's a futile effort. It drains your spirit. Seneca was exiled to Corsica by the Emperor Claudius, sent away from Rome, from his career, from everything familiar. He could have spent those years in bitter complaint. He wrote about it not with rage but with acceptance. He used the time to study, to write. He turned what looked like a punishment into a period of productivity. Inner growth, he focused on what was within his control, his attitude, his use of the time, his writings. Epictetus said it perfectly: people are disturbed not by things but by the views they take of them. The traffic jam doesn't create your frustration. Your judgment that this shouldn't be happening, that it's ruining your day, that creates the storm. The difficult boss doesn't create your anxiety. Your story about what their criticism means, that's the source of the tension. Take a common example. You're running late because of a sudden downpour. The automatic reaction is to complain about the weather, about your luck. The Stoic reframe is 2 steps. First, ask, is this within my control? The rain is not. My being late might be if I'd left earlier, but that moment is gone. So acceptance is the only rational choice. Fighting the rain is like trying to push the ocean back. Second, ask, what is within my control right now? You can call ahead to say you'll be delayed. You can use the time to listen to something. You can choose to arrive calmly, not flustered. You shift your focus from the problem you can't solve to the response you can choose. This isn't about becoming passive. It's about becoming strategic. Your energy is finite. Complaining pours it out onto the ground. Directing it toward a thoughtful response channels it into resilience. So here's a prompt. Catch yourself in one complaint, just one. A muttered grievance about a coworker, a sigh about a long line. The moment you hear it, pause, acknowledge the feeling, but then reframe it. Either into a simple acceptance, this is the situation and fighting it is useless, or into a single, small action. What's one thing I can do right now to improve this moment? That small pivot from complaint to choice is a reclaiming of your own life, who you're holding a grudge against and what that's costing you right now. That quiet wait, that old story you keep replaying, it's more than a memory. It's a tax you're paying on your peace. This is the seventh sign, holding past wrongs. Letting old injuries live in the space in your mind where your life should be. Seneca saw this as a deep waste. He wrote that anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. A grudge works the same way, that irrational logic. You're the one who continues to suffer. You're the one keeping the wound open long after the event is over. The other person may have moved on. They might not even remember, but you carry it. You feed it with your attention, and you give someone from your past a permanent seat at the table of your present life. Forgiveness for a Stoic isn't saying what happened was okay. It's not condoning a wrong. It's a rational act of self-liberation. It's deciding to stop letting that person's past action dictate your current emotional state. Seneca, writing on anger, said life is too short for long-held bitterness. Why spend your limited days, the only ones you have, rehearsing a pain you can't change? He said to look at the larger scale. From the view of a lifetime or cosmic time, these personal slights are tiny. To magnify them into lifelong conflicts is to lose all sense of proportion. Think of a friendship that fell apart years ago over a misunderstanding. The original argument is forgotten, but the chill remains. You see their name online and feel that old pang. Or a family dispute where the issue itself has faded, but the awkward silences at gatherings are a living monument to the grudge. In both cases, the story has ended, but you keep reading the same painful page. Over and over, the cost is real. It costs mental energy you could use to create. It costs emotional space you could fill with connection. It hardens your heart. Makes you wary, closed off to new things. So a practical step, a reflective prompt from therapeutic practice that fits Stoic self-examination. Write a forgiveness letter to the person you resent. Don't send it, this isn't for them, it's entirely for you. Sit down and write it all out, the hurt, the anger, the betrayal, and then, consciously, write a sentence of release. Something like, I am choosing to set this down so I can move forward. The act of writing forces clarity. It gets the swirling thoughts out of your head and onto the page, where you can see them for what they are, stories you've been telling yourself. And the act of declaring release, even just to yourself, begins to loosen the old chains. It's a quiet, powerful reclaiming of your own present moment from the grip of a past you can't change. Seneca wrote about death not to be morbid, but because he saw a paradox. The fear of death, it's meant to protect our life, but it can end up wasting it. Making us timid, clinging to a narrow, safe version of living. It feels less like living and more like waiting. The Stoics had a practice for this, a tool. They called it memento mori, remember you must die. It wasn't a dark obsession, it was a lens, a focusing lens. By keeping the end in mind, you're forced to ask the urgent questions. What matters, what's trivial? When you know your time is limited, you stop wasting it. You stop spending it on things that don't serve your values. You also gain a kind of fearlessness. About the smaller things, the fear of embarrassment, the fear of a financial loss, the fear of rejection, these anxieties, they shrink when you hold them against the backdrop of your own mortality. They're not endings, they're just events. Seneca put it powerfully. He said, rehearse death. To say this is to practice freedom. A person who has learned how to die has unlearned how to be a slave. What he meant was by accepting the one thing we all must face, you liberate yourself from all the smaller, imaginary fears, the ones that control your daily choices. The fear of what people might think, that's a kind of social death. The fear of failure, that's the death of a particular vision for your future. When you acknowledge these aren't real endings, are just changes, you can act. You can act with more courage. So here's a question, a direct application. If you knew for certain you had 1 year left to live, what would you stop doing? Immediately, not what would you start, that's important too. but what current obligation, what habit, what drain on your energy would you let go of without a second thought? The answer to that question, it reveals something. It shows you what you're tolerating right now out of a misplaced sense of permanence. It shows you the clutter you can clear away. To make more room for a life that feels alive, we build a resume for years, but our character, how much time do we give to that? That's the ninth sign. Neglecting character, we're taught to collect achievements, degrees, titles, followers, things. That's the currency we use. But for Seneca and the Stoics, there was one real currency. Virtue, your character, your inner compass, everything else, your health, your money, your reputation. They called those preferred indifference. They're nice to have. You can use them well, but they aren't the good itself. The good is virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, temperance. A life focused only on the external markers. That's a life built on sand. Because those things, they can be taken away. One phone call, a market shift, a change in opinion. Your character, though, that's the one thing no one can take from you. It's the only thing that's truly yours. Seneca wrote about this to his friend Lucilius. He said philosophy isn't a popular art for show. It's not about words but facts. It's not to pass the day in an entertaining way, to ease boredom. It shapes the soul, it builds it up, it orders your life, regulates your conduct, shows you what to do and what to leave undone. It sits at the helm, steering the course when you're lost. That shaping of the soul, that's character development. That's the real work. You see the imbalance everywhere. The executive brilliant at strategy but ruthless with the team. The influencer with a perfect life but insecure and unkind in private. The parent who provides every material comfort but doesn't model patience or honesty. In each case, there's professional success, external success, but a hollow core where character should be. The Stoic question is simple. What good is a magnificent house if the person inside is miserable or angry or corrupt? The house can burn down, the person remains. So a practical prompt. Pick one of the four virtues, just one. Wisdom, courage, justice, temperance. Take courage. Not the battlefield kind, the quiet courage of having a difficult conversation you've avoided, or the courage to admit you were wrong. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your expression of that virtue this past week? Be gentle but honest, then one single small step, one action in the next 24 hours to move that number just a fraction higher. Maybe sending that difficult email. Maybe apologizing for a small oversight. That small, conscious choice to act with virtue. That's how you stop neglecting your character. That's how you build a life on rock, not sand. You can end up just watching other people live. That's the 10th sign, living through others, letting your focus, your emotional energy, get taken up by the polished stories of people you don't even know. Seneca saw this happening. He saw people in Rome giving all their time and passion to the chariot races, the gladiator fights, the latest political drama. He called it a public madness, a way to run away from yourself, because when you're caught up in someone else's drama, you don't have to face the quiet work of your own life. The arena today is different, but the idea is the same. It's the endless scroll through the best moments of influencers, celebrities, even people you barely know. It's consuming every detail of some reality TV argument. It's knowing more about the personal lives of strangers than you do about the people next door. In every case, you're a spectator. You're putting your most valuable resource, your attention, into a story you can't control, a story that doesn't help you. Seneca's advice was to retreat into yourself. He said you have to go back into your own mind, because there you find a peace that the outside chaos can't touch. Constant watching does the opposite. It pulls you out of yourself. It makes your inner state depend on outside events. And the most damaging part is the comparison. You see a carefully edited clip of someone's vacation, their new job, their perfect home, and without even deciding to, you hold your own raw, unedited reality up against that polished version. Your own life, with its ordinary tasks and quiet difficulties, starts to feel like it's not enough. That comparison steals your contentment. It pulls you away from your own path, your own responsibilities, the specific story you're supposed to be writing. Consider an hour spent watching a celebrity talk about their routine, their diet, their views on relationships. That's an hour you didn't spend making yourself a good meal, or walking outside where you live, or having a real talk with someone you love. The Stoic question is blunt: who is living your life while you're busy watching someone else's? So here's a practical thing to try: a one-day fast from comparison. For 24 hours, consciously try not to measure your life against anyone else's. This isn't about deleting apps, it's about shifting your internal stance. When you see someone's success online, notice that pull to compare, and then gently steer your thought elsewhere. That is their path. What's one small, actual step on mine today? When you hear gossip, choose not to dive into it. That is their story. What chapter am I writing in my own? This fast isn't about cutting yourself off. It's about taking something back. It's the quiet, deliberate act of turning your eyes back to your own stage, picking up your own script, and starting to say your lines. Sailing without a compass, that's Seneca's image for a life without a philosophy. You're on the water, you're moving, but there's no direction. Every wave, every gust of wind just pushes you somewhere new. All your energy goes into reacting, not steering. That's the 11th sign, a lack of guiding principles. Seneca put it bluntly. He said, if you don't know which port you're sailing for, no wind is favorable. That's the core. Without a destination you've chosen, every condition feels wrong. A calm sea leaves you bored, a storm leaves you terrified, a strong wind just pushes you further off course. Your life becomes a series of reactions to the latest problem, the latest opinion. You're not living intentionally, you're just being blown around. For the Stoics, philosophy wasn't abstract. It was a practical operating system, the compass and the map. A coherent set of principles, like the dichotomy of control, gives you a framework. So when a crisis hits, a job loss, a health scare, you don't start from zero, panicking. You have a pre-installed protocol. You run the checklist. First, what's within my control here? Second, what action aligns with courage, with justice? The framework doesn't remove the difficulty, but it removes the paralysis. It gives you a path through the chaos. You see the contrast. Two people get the same bad news: a major project at work is cancelled. The person without a guiding philosophy might spiral. They complain, they blame others, they see it as a personal failure. Their entire emotional state is hijacked. The person with a Stoic mindset feels the disappointment, but then the framework engages. They assess. The cancellation itself wasn't within my control. My effort was. My reaction now is. They ask, what is within my control? I can learn from this. I can communicate about next steps. I can redirect my energy. One reaction creates more suffering. The other creates resilience, forward motion. This isn't about having all the answers. It's about having a reliable method for finding them. Seneca spent his life building his philosophy through letters and essays. He was creating his compass. So when the storms came, exile, political intrigue, his own forced passing, he wasn't lost. He had a port in mind, a life lived with integrity, and he knew how to steer toward it, even in the worst conditions. So a practical step, a reflective prompt. Take a moment, write down just for yourself your top 3 core values. What principles guide your major decisions? Is it integrity, compassion, lifelong learning? Courage? Don't overthink it, just name them. These are the stars you'll use to navigate when the compass seems to spin. Knowing them is the first act of taking the helm. Seneca had frail health, but he knew that neglecting the body was neglecting the self. For the Stoics, the mind and body weren't separate things you could manage on their own. They were a unified whole. The self was one thing, a mind inside a vessel, and to let that vessel fall apart through carelessness, that was sabotaging your own capacity for virtue. How do you practice wisdom if you're too tired to think? How do you act with courage if you're always feeling weak? The mind's clarity depends on the body's condition. Seneca wrote about his own struggles, breathing difficulties that plagued him. He didn't see his body as an enemy. It was a partner, a vessel that needed mindful upkeep so his spirit could do its work. In his letters, he advised treating the body rigorously so it wouldn't be disobedient to the mind. He practiced voluntary discomfort, simple food, cold baths, a hard bed. Not to punish himself, to toughen the connection, to make sure his comfort didn't become a soft prison, something that made him fear any hardship. And this is where the 12th sign shows up. Ignoring the body's wisdom. It's the chronic sacrifice of sleep for one more hour of work or scrolling. It's fueling yourself with nothing but convenience food, day after day, because it's easy. It's avoiding movement, avoiding feeling your body work, until it starts to whisper with aches and stiffness. We tell ourselves these are just physical matters, separate from our character, but that's the illusion. Every time you ignore your need for rest, you train your mind to ignore its own limits. Every time you choose the quick, unsatisfying meal, you practice neglecting what truly nourishes you. You're building a habit of disregard, and it spills over into every other area of life. The body's signals are a form of wisdom. Fatigue is information. Stress is information. Discomfort is information. To constantly override them is to live at war with your own nature. So here's a practical step, a gentle one. This week, choose one small, sustainable habit to better care for your physical vessel. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Could be drinking one more glass of water each morning. A 10-minute walk outside without your phone, going to bed 15 minutes earlier. One thing, the key is consistency, not intensity, and watch how that single act of care for the vessel creates a subtle shift in the mind inside it. A little more patience, a bit more focus, that's the unity Seneca spoke of, quietly restored. Seneca talked about indecision. He compared it to keeping your boat anchored in the harbor. You're safe from storms, but you never go anywhere. You never reach a destination. That's the 13th sign, procrastination. It's a quiet way to steal your own time. You avoid taking responsibility for your life, because if you haven't decided, you can always tell yourself the better option is still out there. You haven't failed. But you also haven't lived. You've just been waiting. Seneca saw this as a major mistake. He wrote that while we postpone things, life speeds by. Procrastination isn't just bad time management. It's rooted in fear, the fear of discomfort, the discomfort of a wrong choice, the discomfort of effort, the potential discomfort of failure or criticism. So we delay, we research without end, we look for one more opinion, we wait for perfect conditions that never come. The Stoics had a different view. They believed action is aligned with nature. To be human is to act, to choose, to move. Even an imperfect action is better than perfect inaction, because action is how you learn. It's how you build your character. Indecision keeps you soft. It keeps you in a kind of childhood where something else is responsible for your fate. Think of the career change you've thought about for years. You read about it, you talk about it, but you don't update your resume. You don't make the call or the hard conversation with a family member. You rehearse it in your head, but you never pick up the phone. Or the creative project, the book, the painting. You buy the supplies, you make the folder, and then you stare at the blank page. You wait for inspiration. In each case, the delay feels like preparation, but often it's just avoidance. The harbor is comfortable, the sea is unknown. Seneca suggested a shift. He said it's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Life is long enough if you know how to use it, and so much of that waste is in the gap between knowing what to do and doing it. So here's a practical step. Identify one decision you've been putting off. It doesn't have to be huge. It could be a home repair, setting a budget, addressing an annoyance. Name it now, commit to one small action toward it in the next day. Not the whole thing, just one step. If it's the career change, email one person in that field for a short chat. If it's the difficult conversation, write down the 3 main points you need to say. If it's the creative project, set a timer for 20 minutes and write or sketch without judgment. That one small action breaks the anchor chain. It turns the boat just a degree toward the open sea, and in that motion you become the captain again. Would you rather have a long, mediocre life or a shorter, extraordinary one? That's the 14th sign. It's valuing length over depth. It's this obsession with adding years to your life without ever asking if you're adding life to those years. You focus on longevity, on playing it safe, on avoiding anything that might shorten your time, and you can end up with a very long stretch of days that feel hollow. Seneca was confronting this in his essay on the shortness of life. His famous line is the answer. He wrote, "Life is long if you know how to use it." It's not the number of years, it's the quality of your attention inside them. A life measured in intense, meaningful moments is infinitely richer than one measured in empty, cautious years. He saw people who lived as if they would live forever. They postponed their dreams, they avoided risks, they clung to routines that felt secure but offered nothing new. And in that postponement, they lost the very life they were trying to preserve. The Stoic view is that death isn't the tragedy. The tragedy is the life that never truly lived. The life spent in waiting, so it becomes a question of quality, not quantity, depth, not just duration. You see the contrast. One person spends decades in a comfortable, unfulfilling job. They take no risks, they avoid conflict, they choose the safest path in every relationship, every decision. Their life is long and quiet and maybe filled with a gentle regret for things never tried. Another person might have fewer years, but they are packed with intention. They change careers to follow a calling, even when it's scary. They travel to places that challenge them. They have difficult conversations that lead to deeper connections. They create things, they fail, they learn. Their life isn't necessarily safer or longer. But it is deeper, it is more alive. Seneca would ask which of these two has truly lived more, the one with 80 years of sleepwalking or the one with 50 years of wide-awake presence. This isn't about seeking danger, it's about seeking engagement, choosing experiences that make you feel fully present, even with some uncertainty. So here's a prompt. A simple one. Think back. List 3 experiences that made you feel most alive, truly, vibrantly alive. Now look at that list. Were those experiences safe, predictable, risk-free? Or did they involve some element of the unknown, a challenge you weren't sure you could meet, a vulnerability you had to embrace, a leap you had to take? That pattern you see, that's the clue. It points toward what adds life to your years, and it quietly asks what you might be avoiding now, in the name of a safety that could cost you your depth. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. That's something Seneca would have agreed with. It's the 15th sign, surrounding yourself with negative influences. It's a law of association we forget. Your character isn't built alone. It's shaped conversation by the people you let get close. Seneca wrote a lot about friendship. He said you have to choose with great care because character is contagious. You can't spend hours every day with someone who's cynical, who complains all the time, who sees the worst in everything, and expect your own mind to stay calm and clear. Their outlook seeps into yours. Their anxieties become background noise in your own thinking. In his letters, he advised to associate with people who will improve you. Welcome those you yourself can improve. The process is mutual. That's the mark of a true friendship. It's a partnership in virtue. A toxic relationship, though, is a major obstacle to your peace. It actively pulls you away from the virtues you're trying to cultivate. Think of the energy vampire friend. Every interaction leaves you drained. They monopolize conversations with their dramas. They rarely ask about your life. Their presence is a tax on your emotional reserves. or the colleague who constantly gossips and criticizes management. Spending your lunch break with them doesn't just waste time, it trains you in cynicism. It encourages you to see your workplace as a hostile arena, not a place where you can practice professionalism and patience. These influences don't just affect your mood, they shape your judgments, your standards, what you begin to see as normal. Seneca warned that we mimic the vices of those we're around. We come to like them, and then we come to share them. It happens so quietly. One day you're listening to their complaints, the next you're adding your own. One day you're tolerating their lack of integrity, the next you're bending your own rules. So here's a reflective prompt, a gentle but honest assessment. Look at your inner circle, the 5 people you interact with most, not just who you love, but who actually occupies your time and attention. Does their general spirit lift you up or weigh you down? Do their conversations tend toward growth and understanding, or complaint and criticism? Now, consider one person who consistently represents a negative influence. You don't need to cut them out dramatically. The Stoic way is about wise management of your attention. Could you gently distance yourself, reduce the frequency or depth of your interactions? Protect your time and mental space. That isn't cruelty, it's stewardship. It's the deliberate cultivation of an environment where your best self can grow. Seneca saw leisure as an art. Idleness was a vice. The 16th sign is confusing the two. It's a subtle difference, but a crucial one. One restores you. It deepens you, recharges your spirit. The other just drains time. It leaves you feeling more hollow than before. Seneca had a term for the good kind. He called it otium, worthy leisure. It wasn't empty time. It was time for philosophy, for walking in nature, for deep conversation with a friend, for reflection that helps you understand your life. True leisure, he wrote, isn't doing nothing. It's being free to do what is worthy. It's an active state of freedom. Idleness is passive. It's a kind of dissipation. A scattering of your attention. You're busy doing nothing of value, even in your free time. The goal isn't restoration. It's just escape. An escape as a habit is just another form of running away from yourself. You see this in modern life. Think of a Sunday afternoon. One person spends 3 hours binge watching a show they're not even enjoying. They just keep clicking next episode. When it's over, they feel sluggish, a little guilty, no more rested than when they started. That's idleness. Another person might spend an hour reading a challenging book, one that expands their mind, or they take a long walk without their phone, just observing the trees and the sky, or they call a friend for a real conversation, not just small talk. Afterwards, they feel refreshed, more centered, more connected to themselves. That's otium, that's worthy leisure. The first activity depletes you, the second nourishes you. Both are forms of not working, but they have opposite effects on your soul. Seneca warned that many people who seem to be at leisure are actually in a state of anxious idleness. They're restless, they jump from one distraction to the next, never finding peace. Because peace isn't found in the absence of activity. It's found in the presence of purposeful engagement, even in rest. So the question is how you spend the space between your obligations. Is it filling a void, or is it cultivating your inner life? Here's a practical prompt. A simple experiment. This weekend, plan for 1 single hour of true, intentional otium. Block it out, decide in advance what it will be. It could be visiting a museum, writing in a journal, learning a few chords on an instrument, or simply sitting quietly with a cup of tea and your own thoughts. The key is intention. Choose an activity you believe will leave you feeling more whole, not just more numb. Protect that hour. See how it feels. That 1 hour of deliberate, worthy leisure can become a quiet revolution against the wasteful habit of idle escape. You know, when things go well, you feel like a success, and when they don't, you feel like a failure. Seneca called that a fundamental error. It's the 17th sign. Letting luck decide your self-worth. You're giving the keys to your inner peace to the chaotic winds of fortune. On a good day, you get the promotion, you get the praise, and you feel confident. You feel worthy. On a bad day, you face a rejection, a setback, and that confidence just crumbles. You feel like an imposter. Your entire sense of value is tied to an event you can't control. Seneca wrote about this in On Providence. He argued that what we call bad luck is often a test, a training ground. He asked why so many harsh, difficult things happen to good men. His answer was that fortune is like a strict teacher. She puts her best students through the hardest trials, not to break them, but to strengthen them. To prove what they're made of, the Stoic view is clear. Your moral worth, your character, is separate from what happens to you. Externals are indifferent. They're just the material you work with. Your virtue is in how you respond. Whether you get a windfall or a loss, the real question is the same. Will you act with wisdom? With justice, courage, moderation? Think of the sudden euphoria from an unexpected bonus. It feels like validation. But if that feeling turns to arrogance or a frantic need for more, it hasn't improved your character. It's revealed a weakness. Now consider the despair after an unexpected job loss. It feels like a personal indictment. But if that despair forces you to reassess, to learn a new skill, to find a path you never would have considered, then the bad luck becomes a catalyst. It becomes growth you didn't know you needed. The event itself was indifferent. Your response gave it meaning. So think back to one event you labeled as bad luck. A missed opportunity, a financial loss, a rejection. Sit with that memory. Now, with some distance, identify one strength that experience fostered, or one valuable lesson. Did it teach you resilience? Did it show you who your real friends were? Did it force you to develop a skill you now rely on? That strength, that lesson, is the real fortune. It's the part of the event that belonged to you, that no one could take away. That's where your true worth was being built, even in the middle of the storm. The average person speaks thousands of words every day. Seneca would ask how many of those are necessary, how many are true, and how many are kind. That's the 18th sign. Speaking without thinking, it feels harmless, like a release, but it scatters your energy and it often leaves damage behind. For the Stoics, speech was an action. A powerful action, and like any action, it needed the discipline of assent. That pause between the impulse and the act itself. To speak without that pause is to let your tongue run ahead of your reason. It's a surrender of control. Seneca warned about the tongue. Epictetus warned about it too. Epictetus gave a practical filter. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we can listen more than we speak. And before you speak, ask 3 things. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? That's the Stoic checkpoint for any word that wants to leave your mouth. It forces you to consider the impact, not just your intent. Gossip is the classic failure. It might be true, but is it necessary? Almost never, and it's almost never kind. It trades temporary social bonding for lasting harm. Harm to someone's reputation and to your own character. Harsh criticism, especially in anger, might feel true in the moment. But spoken without necessity or kindness, it becomes an attack. It shuts down understanding, even frivolous talk. The constant stream of complaints about small things. It wastes your mental energy. It wastes the listener's patience. It trains your mind to focus on the insignificant. Think of the office break room. The conversation turns to dissecting a colleague's personal life. Each shared speculation feels like a connection, but it's a connection built on tearing someone else down, or consider venting online in a harsh, sweeping post. The momentary feeling of catharsis is outweighed by the real hurt it can cause, and by the negative character you're reinforcing in yourself. Every careless word is a tiny leak in your integrity. So here's a practical challenge, a reflective prompt for today. In one conversation, just one, practice the 3 filters consciously. Before you contribute, pause. Mentally run the check. Is what I'm about to say true, or am I assuming? Is it necessary to say right now, or can it wait, or is it better left unsaid? Is it kind, or is it likely to cause needless pain? That tiny pause, that moment of conscious choice, it transforms speech from a reactive habit into a deliberate practice. A practice of justice and self-control. Seneca pointed out a 19th sign, the soul that's always looking for something outside itself. It's this chase after novelty. A belief that the next thing, the next experience, the next purchase will finally deliver a feeling, but it never does, not for long. The thrill is in the chase itself. And once that fades, you're looking again. It's a treadmill. He saw it in the travelers of his time. They'd change their climate, but not their mind. They'd sail across the sea, thinking they could leave their troubles behind, but their anxieties traveled with them. They carried what they were running from inside. The location was new, the scenery was different, but the person was the same. So the same feelings, dissatisfaction, boredom, they all came back, just in a new place. You see it now. It's the cycle of upgrading your phone. The new model comes out, and the one in your hand, which worked fine, suddenly feels old, slow. You trade it in, get that rush, and within a week, it's just your phone again. The thrill is gone, or it's the travel checklist, rushing from landmark to landmark, taking photos to prove you were there, but never settling into a place. Never being present. You collect stamps in a passport, but not memories, or jumping from hobby to hobby, buying all the gear for photography, then woodworking, then cooking. Each one brings a burst of excitement, but when the learning gets hard, when it requires discipline, you lose interest. You're on to the next new thing. The pattern is an inability to be content, a refusal to go deep because depth needs patience. It requires sitting with something long enough to find its layers. Novelty is the enemy of depth. It keeps you skimming the surface of your own life. So there's a simple practice, a reflective prompt. This weekend or this afternoon, pick one thing you already own. Or one place you know well, a book on your shelf you only half read, a park you always walk through quickly, an instrument gathering dust. Commit to 1 full hour with it. Not passively, with deep, intentional engagement. If it's the book, read a chapter slowly, then sit and think. Write down one question it raises. If it's the park, walk without headphones. Sit on a bench and observe. Notice the light through the leaves, the sounds you usually tune out. If it's the instrument, don't aim for a song. Just explore the sound of a single note. Feel the vibration. This practice isn't about the object. It's about training your attention. It's about discovering that the richness you seek from newness has been waiting all along. In the depth of your engagement with the ordinary things right in front of you, Stoicism isn't about selfishness. Seneca talked a lot about duty to the community, to other people, and there's a sign you might be neglecting that, the 20th sign. It's when you focus too narrowly on your own comfort, your own gain. You forget you're part of something larger. You have roles. You're a family member, a friend, a citizen, a colleague. To abandon those roles is to live a kind of half-life. Disconnected, the Stoics had a word for this sense of connection, oikoiosis, a sense of belonging. It starts with self-preservation, that natural instinct. But as reason develops, that circle of care expands, from yourself to your family, then to friends, then to the community, ultimately to all of humanity. A good life is a socially embedded life. Your well-being is tied to the well-being of others. Seneca wrote about this. He said no one can live happily who lives for themselves alone. To live for yourself is to live for nothing. Happiness is in useful service, in contributing to something larger than your own desires. When you shrink that circle back down to just you, you're going against your own nature, against the reason that defines you. You see this neglect in quiet ways. The parent who's physically there but emotionally absent, always on the phone, missing the small moments. The fair weather friend who's there for the fun but disappears when support is needed. The citizen who doesn't vote, doesn't engage, then complains. The professional who does the bare minimum, never thinking about their team or their clients. In each case, it's a narrow self-interest, comfort, ease, immediate gratification, over-responsibility, and often they don't see the cost. The cost is a life that feels shallow. It lacks that deep, anchoring meaning, the meaning that comes from being needed, from knowing you're a reliable part of a larger story. So here's a reflective prompt. A practical one: take a moment, list your key roles, not your job title, your relational roles: parent, child, sibling, friend, partner, neighbor, colleague, citizen. Just write them down, then for each role, ask one simple question. What's one small, specific way I could better fulfill my duty here this week? It doesn't have to be grand. For a parent, it might be putting the phone away during dinner and asking one real question. For a friend, a check-in text to someone who's been quiet. For a citizen, reading one article about a local issue you usually ignore. For a colleague, offering genuine praise for a small job well done. That list and those small commitments are a map. A map out of the isolated self, back into the interconnected world, where a meaningful life is actually built. The most dangerous assumption is that you have time. That someday is a given. This is the 21st sign, and for Seneca, it was the source of all the others. Believing you have unlimited time is what allows every kind of delay, every postponement of what matters. We behave as if death is just a story we've heard, not something that's definitely coming, and we exchange our real days for the idea of days we might have later. Seneca's whole essay on the shortness of life is about facing this illusion. He wrote that procrastination is the great waste of a life. It takes each day from you as it arrives. It robs you of the present by telling you the future is where things happen. Expectation is the biggest thing in the way of living. It depends on tomorrow and it loses today. You manage what's up to chance and you let go of what's up to you. So what are you waiting for? That's the pressing question. The belief in someday is a thief. A quiet one. It takes away the sense of urgency, which is actually a gift because urgency makes things clear. It makes you sort out what's important from what isn't. Without it, you just float. You think, I'll make peace with that person when life settles. I'll start that book when I have a clear month. I'll see about that health thing when I'm less busy. I'll say I love you when the timing seems perfect. But someday isn't a real day. It's a story we use to avoid the difficulty of acting now. The Stoic exercise memento mori, remember you must die, is the answer to this. It's not about being grim, it's a tool for seeing clearly. When you keep the limit of your time in mind, your priorities become sharp. Small annoyances don't matter as much. The fear of looking foolish gets smaller. The nerve to start something hard gets stronger, because if not now, then when? So there's a question that comes from this. A memento mori question. It's simple, but it goes through every excuse. What's the one thing you'd regret most not doing if you found out your life ended tonight? Don't give a big, vague answer. Give a specific one, something you could actually do. Would you regret not making that call, not writing that first sentence? Not going outside to see the sky, not saying those exact words to that one person. The answer to that question isn't really about death, it's a pointer. It shows you what it means for you to be alive, and it asks you quietly but without stopping, what are you waiting for? A map isn't the territory, and sometimes you get so focused on the map, you forget to actually walk the ground. That's the 22nd sign, overplanning, underliving. It's when you're building this perfect blueprint for a future and you never move in, you're always revising the plans. For the Stoics, that was a failure to practice amor fati, loving your fate, which isn't just accepting it, it's embracing it, a willingness to dance with reality, not fight it. Overplanning is the opposite. It's trying to control what you can't control, locking the future into a shape, and in that rigidity you miss the spontaneous moments. The ones that often mean the most. Seneca wrote about this, the tension between our will and fate's course. He said, "Fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling." You can move with grace toward what life brings, or you can be pulled kicking into the same current. The overplanner is usually the one being dragged. Because when reality deviates from the script, and it always does, they see it as a failure, a personal affront, not an invitation to a different path. Think about a meticulously scheduled vacation, every hour accounted for, every restaurant reservation made months ahead. The goal becomes checking off the list. Getting the perfect photo for the itinerary, but in that frenzy there's no space to get lost in a side street, to stumble on a quiet cafe, to just sit and watch the light change over a city. The vacation becomes a project to manage, not an experience to have, or a rigid 5-year career plan. Every step plotted, but then an unexpected offer comes from a different field, or a global event shifts everything. The overplanner might reject the surprise. Because it doesn't fit the blueprint, they choose the safety of the known plan over the potential of the unknown path. In both cases, the plan was meant to serve the life, but it ends up imprisoning it. The Stoic virtue here is wisdom, knowing what you can control and what you can't. You can control your intentions, your efforts, your values. You can't control the outcomes, the surprises, the twists in the road. A wise plan is a direction, not a prison sentence. It's a compass setting, not a railroad track. So here's a practical prompt, counterintuitive. This week, intentionally leave one block of time unplanned, a Saturday afternoon, maybe a weekday evening. Don't fill it with a to-do list, don't schedule entertainment, leave it open. And when that time arrives, just ask yourself, what feels right to do in this moment? Maybe it's a long walk without a destination. Maybe it's finally calling that friend you've been thinking about. Maybe it's sitting quietly and letting your mind wander. The goal isn't productivity. The goal is to practice presence, to reclaim a few hours from the tyranny of the plan. Give them back to the territory of your own lived experience. In that open space, you might remember what it feels like to live, not just to plan a life. The idea that obstacles might not be detours, that they might actually be the path itself. That's the 23rd sign. It's this search for a perfect life, one without any pain, without hardship or challenge, the belief that a good life is pain-free. That's a fantasy, and it's dangerous because it sets you up for constant frustration. It makes you weak. The moment you face any resistance, you think something's gone wrong, that you're off track. But for a Stoic, the track is made of that resistance. Seneca called this the art of affirmation. He saw adversity not as a curse, but as the necessary gym for the soul. He said a smooth sea never made a skilled sailor. The struggles are the training. They build the resilience, the wisdom, the depth of character that a comfortable life can't provide. He wrote that difficulty shows what you are, that fortune is like a river. It exposes the foundations of your character that calm waters never touch. His famous line is about polishing. He said a gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. The friction isn't a mistake in the process, it is the process. Without it, the gem stays rough, the person stays soft, untested. You see this expectation play out in small ways. Someone starts a new fitness goal. They feel the first muscle soreness, the first real fatigue, and they interpret it as a sign they're not cut out for it, so they quit. They wanted the result without the required struggle. Or a professional gets a piece of constructive criticism, one piece of negative feedback in a sea of praise. Instead of seeing it as useful data, they become despondent. They feel personally attacked. Their expectation of a perfectly smooth journey is shattered. In both cases, the pain, physical or emotional, wasn't a signal to stop. It was a signal that growth was happening, that the old, comfortable version of yourself was being challenged. The Stoic shift is to see the obstacle as the way. The difficulty isn't blocking your path, it is offering you the exact lesson you need to move forward. So here's a practical application, a reflective prompt. Identify one current difficulty in your life. It doesn't have to be monumental. It could be a tense relationship, a financial worry, a project that feels overwhelming. Name it now, take a moment. Write down one way this difficulty is actually strengthening your character. Is it teaching you patience? Is it forcing you to be more resourceful? Is it showing you where your boundaries need to be? Is it deepening your capacity for empathy? Find that one point of strength. That single point reframes everything. It transforms the obstacle from a foe to a stern but valuable teacher. It reminds you that you are not being prevented from living a good life. You are in the very middle of building one. Step outside. The trees aren't rushing, but they grow. Seasons change without any complaint. That's the 24th sign, ignoring the lessons of nature. It's a deep disconnect, living at odds with natural rhythms, the rhythms of your own body, of the day, of the year, and of the larger cosmos you're part of. For the Stoics, this wasn't just about being outdoors. It was a core principle, living in accordance with nature. They had a whole branch of study called Stoic physics. Their understanding of how the universe works, at the heart of it was the logos, the rational, ordering principle in everything, the reason in nature. To live according to nature meant aligning your own reason with that universal reason, accepting your place as a small but connected part of a vast, intelligent whole. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this. He said, "What doesn't benefit the hive doesn't benefit the bee. You are a part of this whole. Nothing that happens to the part can be harmful to the whole. Nothing that benefits the whole can be bad for the part. Your duty is to play your part well, to flow with the changes of the whole, not fight against them." When you ignore this, you feel the friction. You see it in chronic stress from ignoring your body's basic sleep cycle, pushing through fatigue with caffeine, staring at bright screens late into the night, overriding your need for rest. You're fighting your own biology. You see it in resisting necessary life changes, clinging to a job, a relationship, or an identity long after its season has passed. Nature is constant change, decay and renewal, winter and spring. To resist change is to resist the fundamental law of existence, and you see it in that feeling of isolation. The sense that you're alone, adrift, carrying the entire weight of your world. That feeling often comes from forgetting your connection, forgetting that you are a leaf on a vast, ancient tree. Your life is brief, but you are part of something that endures. This disconnect creates a subtle, persistent anxiety, a feeling that you must control everything because you believe you are everything. But nature teaches surrender, not giving up but wise acceptance. The river doesn't argue with the rocks, it flows around them. The tree doesn't resist the wind. It bends. So here's a simple prompt, a direct way to reconnect. Sometime in the next 2 days, give yourself 10 minutes. Go outside. It doesn't have to be wilderness. A park, a backyard, even a quiet street with a tree will do. Leave your phone inside or in your pocket, and for those 10 minutes, just observe. Don't plan, don't problem solve, don't judge. Watch how the light falls, listen to the sounds near and far, feel the air on your skin, notice the pace of things that aren't human-made, the slow growth of moss. The patient path of a cloud, the unhurried movement of a bird, and then, after those 10 minutes, ask yourself one question. How do I feel? A little quieter. A little smaller in a good way, more connected. That feeling is the lesson. It's the quiet hum of the logos, a reminder that you belong here, and that harmony, not control, is the source of real peace. If you never check where you are, you can't really know where you're going. Seneca, toward the end, had this habit. He would sit in the quiet and ask himself questions. That's the 25th sign, forgetting to look back over your day. It's the final one, the master sign, because without this, all the other signs can just slip past you. You could be wasting your days and not even see it. You might feel like you're moving forward, but really you're just walking in a wide, slow circle. The Stoics called it the evening review, an examination of conscience. It wasn't about guilt, it was about clarity, a daily correction. Seneca wrote about his own way in his letters. He said, "When the lamp is out and my wife is quiet, I look over my whole day. I go back through what I did and what I said. I hide nothing from myself. I skip nothing. Why should I be afraid of my mistakes," he said, "when I can tell myself, see that you don't do this again, for now I forgive you." In that, you see the whole point. It's a gentle, firm, honest talk with yourself. The goal is to catch the small errors before they turn into habits, to notice the small wins, to strengthen the better path. It's how you stop the drift. Without this review, life is just reactions. You go from thing to thing, feeling to feeling, with no real steering. The small irritation from the morning grows into a week-long grudge. The moment you avoided a hard truth gets buried, and then you do it again. The hour lost on empty busyness is forgotten, so you lose it again tomorrow. The review brings it into the light. It turns what happens to you into something you learn from. The practice is simple. It only takes a few minutes. You can do it in bed before sleep or at a desk with a notebook. You ask 3 questions. What did I do well today? Where did I go off course? What can I do better tomorrow? The first question trains you to see progress. Maybe you were patient with a frustration. Maybe you chose a better meal. Maybe you did one meaningful thing instead of getting distracted. Notice that the second question needs gentle honesty. Did I speak without thinking? Did I look for approval? Did I complain about something I can't control? Did I neglect my body? Name it without making a drama. The third question turns the seeing into a plan. For tomorrow, I will pause before I snap back. I will protect 1 hour for real work. I will make that call I've been putting off. That closes the loop. It turns thinking into doing. So here's the invitation. The prompt for this last sign: for just 3 nights this week, try this 3-question review. Don't make it complicated. Set a timer for 5 minutes. Write a line or 2 for each question, or just think it through. The act itself, this nightly check, is the real antidote to a wasted life. It's the quiet, daily work of taking the wheel, of becoming the author of your days, not just a character in them. It's how you make sure, when you look back, you're not reviewing a life that just happened to you, but one you built thought by thought, choice by choice, day by deliberate day. Wasting a life isn't really about doing nothing. It's about misdirection. It's that quiet, daily investment. You're putting your most precious resource, your time, into things that don't actually matter. Those 25 signs we went through, they aren't separate problems, they're symptoms. They point to the same underlying condition: a life lived externally, shaped by reaction, lacking a philosophical compass. It's a life spent chasing approval, clinging to comfort, running from the quiet work of building character. But there's an empowering Stoic truth here. Simply seeing these signs with gentle honesty, that's the first act, the most crucial act of reclamation. It's the moment you turn the light on. You can't change what you refuse to see. Seneca's entire philosophy was built for this moment, this turning. He left us with a call that cuts through all delay. He wrote, "Begin at once to live and count each separate day as a separate life." You don't wait for a grand starting pistol. The beginning is now, this hour, with this single breath. So let's make this practical, make it personal. Look back over the signs. Which 1 or 2 resonated most deeply? Which one felt like a quiet whisper of truth about your own patterns? Choose just one, not to overhaul your entire existence, just to make one small, concrete change. If it was living for tomorrow's approval, your change could be to do one thing today purely for your own satisfaction, and tell no one about it. If it was filling time with empty busyness, your change could be to protect 30 minutes this weekend for true, worthy leisure. No screens, just engagement. If it was complaining, your change could be to catch your next complaint and consciously reframe it. Turn it into a single, small action you can take. That small, deliberate step is how philosophy leaves the page. It's how it enters your life. It's how you stop waiting and start living. We'd love to hear which sign struck a chord with you. Share it in the comments below, not as a confession but as a commitment, a first step in a community learning to live with more intention together. If this journey into practical stoicism has been valuable for you, consider subscribing. There's so much more wisdom to explore, not as ancient theory but as a daily practice. For a modern life, thank you for your time, thank you for your attention. Now, go and begin.